Guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, you're welcome, and if you're a returning subscriber, you're welcome as well. In today's video, we are going to learn how to cut and sew a Queen Anne neckline. So if this is something that really interests you, consider to watch this video to the very end. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, give this video a thumbs up so that YouTube can recommend my video to other viewers, and also consider to share this video. So let's get right into the tutorial. The first thing you want to do is to mark your starting point line. So from there, I'm going to be taking the bust point of 11 inches and I'm going to take it across this pattern paper. The next thing is to take the under bust measurement of 15 inches and you're also going to be taking it across your pattern paper. So after that, I'm going to measure the half length, which you can also call the waist. The half length is 18 inches. For you to get your half length, just add 3 inches to your under bust measurement and you will get your half length measurement. So after that, I'm going to connect all of the points together. So right here, I'm going to mark the shoulder to shoulder measurement, and half of what I'm using is 8.5. So I'm going to mark 8.5. And our chest line is 9 inches. For you to get your chest line, divide your bust divided by 6 plus 1.5. Whatever you get is going to be your chest line. So you mark it from your shoulder line. Now the shoulder line that I marked 8 inches, you also mark it on the chest line. Then you connect it together. So right there is my shoulder line, chest line, bust line, under bust line, waist line. So right here, I'm going to be marking the neck width of 3 inches and you mark the shoulder slope of 1 inch. So go ahead and connect it together. So after connecting, you're going to divide the armhole into 2. Then you go in by half an inch from the midpoint of the armhole. Okay, and then you're going to connect your armhole together like this. So when you are done connecting, I'm going to divide the shoulder, that shoulder area, you divide it into 2, okay, and then mark the midpoint. So right here, I'm going to be taking half of our nipple to nipple measurement, which is 4 inches, okay. You take it from the bust line to the waistline, then you roll it up. Right now, you're going to connect that shoulder, the nipple to nipple measurement, you connect it to the shoulder line, to the midpoint of the shoulder. So on the under bust line, I'm going to be taking 1 inch on both sides of our nipple to nipple measurements. And you're going to do the same thing at the waistline as well. So once you are done marking that, you will go up and come down by half an inch from the bust line. This is to give the bust some room, okay, so that it won't be pointed. So right now, go ahead and connect all of those points I marked out there before. You are going to connect everything together. So once you are done connecting, you're also going to use your curve ruler to connect the bust, to join the bust line to the under bust, just like what I'm doing right now. So if you don't have a curve ruler, you can just use your free hand to get the curve. So I'm just trying to use my marker to make it more visible. I used my pencil before, so I'll use my marker to make it more visible. So once that is done, I'm going to mark the neckline. That is how deep you want the sweetheart neckline and the Queen Anne neckline we want. So I'm marking 6 inches from the shoulder line. So right here, I'm going to connect the 6 inches together, just like I'm doing. If you want to go deeper than 6 inches, you can do 7 inches, okay. It depends on how exposed you want your bust area to be. So on both sides, you'll be taking 1 inch on both sides, okay. So towards this side now, I took 3/4 of an inch, and the other side, the side towards the armhole, I took 1 1/4. So at the end of the day, everything is 2 inches. So right now, I'm marking the width of the neckline, which is 4 inches, and that 4 inches, I'll connect it to that 3 inches neck width I marked around the shoulder area before. So marking it like this is the Queen Anne neckline that we wanted, okay. So right here, I'm extending that 6 inches neckline towards the armhole, okay. Now from that 6 inches, I will come down by 2 inches to form the sweetheart neckline. So go ahead and take your curve ruler and connect the neckline like this. So whatever you take off from this dart area here, you are going to replace it back to the armhole area, because if you don't do that, you will be short of fabric around there. So you need to replace it back and then reconnect your armhole. So once that is done, the next thing I'm going to start doing now is to take the quarter of the bust measurement plus the dart intake we took away around the bust area and the side seam allowance. You are going to repeat the same thing at the under bust, and you also repeat the same thing at the waist. Whatever dart intake you are taking off, you need to add it back plus your stitching allowance. Then go ahead and connect everything together. Now we are going to determine the bust dart, okay, and the difference from our front and back waist is 1 inch. So I'm going to use that 1 inch to take in the bust dart. So as you can see, I've taken in the 1 inch. Now from my half length, I'm coming down by 2 inches because I want to form a basque around there. So I want to come down by 2 inches before forming the basque. Now from the waistline, I'll be coming down by about 4.5 inches. Okay, and then I will connect it together to form the basque. You can come down more than 4.5 inches if you want the basque to be really sharp, okay, but I just want a moderate basque, so that's why I took 4.5 inches downward from our waist. So you can use the curved part and you can use the straight part, so it depends on what you want. So I'm just going to use the curved part and then connect everything together like this. So when you are done connecting, you want to extend the dart, okay, the dart we took off there, you are going to extend it downward just like I'm doing right now. So that's all for the front, okay. Now you are going to through the neckline. So by closing the dart, you are going to close the dart here. So after closing it, you are going to reconnect the neckline because you realize one side is shorter than the other. So you need to connect it so that both neckline can match each other. You can see what I'm doing. So when you are done, you open it up back. So I'm going to reshape the shoulder area to avoid gaping around that shoulder. Okay, so I'm going to be cutting off all the dart intake I took off. You need to take off that gaping around the shoulder area to avoid that sharp edge around the shoulder. You need to take it off. So right now you are going to slit the bust dart open. Okay, you can use your sellotape or your gum, then you close the dart. By the time you close the dart, it makes the bust area more pronounced. You'll see that the bustier becomes more pronounced. It becomes more pronounced after closing the bust dart. So your own bust dart might be 2 inches. Just mark the difference between your front waist and your back waist. So if you want to know about that, just go and check the tutorial I have on how to take body measurements, okay. So yeah, this is all for this for the front part. So I'm going to be cutting this off. Okay, so the next thing will be to cut the back. So this yoke is actually what makes this Queen Anne neckline. You see that yoke whereby the neck around the shoulder area is 3 inches and the neck downward is 4 inches, and then you connect a slant. That is why this neckline is called Queen Anne neckline. So you are going to be adding your seam allowance at the front. You also add seam allowance all over here, okay. You also need to add seam allowance at the top where you are going to be stitching the yoke area, and you also add it to the bottom of this pattern paper. I hope you understand. So the next thing for us now is to cut the back. So I've gone ahead to mark all the points I marked at the front. I've marked it at the back, okay. So for the back, the dart is going to extend to the chest line, and for the back you have zipper allowance at the back. So that's the difference between the front and the back. So the back neck depth is going to be 1 inch. The neck width is still 3 inches, the same thing as the front. The only difference is that the back neck depth is going to be 1 inch. So after that, you connect it together. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to take in our dart. Okay, I'm going to be taking 1/2 inch on both sides of this dart, and I will be stopping 1 inch before the chest line. Okay, 1 inch before the chest line. Then you go ahead and connect the darts together. So you can see what we have around here now. This is very, very easy to make. Now at the back, we are going to be removing the gaping at the back. So you go in half an inch from the underbust. You also go in half an inch from the waistline, like I did now. Then you connect everything together. Okay, you also go ahead and slant it upward. Okay, just like I did now. So that part now, we are going to be cutting it off. Okay, this will prevent our zipper area to bulge. Okay, so that we won't have any gaping around the zipper area. Now for the yoke, I'm going to be also making yoke at the back. So I'm marking 8 inches, even though I'm not going to be cutting off the yoke. Okay, so you see what I did after cutting this pattern paper. So the bridal satin underneath it will be short, while the lace on top of it will be the full bodies. Okay, it's going to be the full bodies. Right now, you are going to start taking the quarter of the bust plus the sewing allowance. At the underbust, you also take the quarter of your underbust plus the dart intake you are taking off around there and the stitching allowance. You repeat the same thing at the waist as well. Now that's half an inch gaping we removed at the zipper allowance. You are going to add it back. Then you connect everything together. So after connecting everything together, just go ahead and cut this off. Okay, the zipper allowance I use is 1.5 because I'm going to be using lining to turn the zipper allowance. So by the time I use half an inch to turn the lining, I will have 1 inch left. So you need to add your shoulder joining allowance to the shoulder area and to the lower parts around the waist. So go ahead and notch your dart because we are not going to be cutting the dart off at the back. Okay, we are not going to be cutting it off, and your zipper allowance is still going to be 1 inch, even though we removed half an inch gaping. It's still going to be 1.5 inch, sorry. So right here I've cut out my lining, cut out the stay and the main fabric. So look at what I did here. Before cutting the pattern, I went ahead to use the full pattern to cut out the back. So after I separated the yoke, so I now use it to cut out the bridal satin. So by the time you place it, you are going to have something like this. Okay, so that's the essence of that yoke I measured around on the pattern. So right here we are going to cut the yoke we are going to be adding to the front top. So right here you are going to place the front part of this yoke to the part that has the selvage. Okay, so go ahead and cut. So when you are cutting, you add stitching allowance to the lower part and you add to the upper part. I did not add it to the armhole area, just the lower part and the upper part, and this is what is going to look like. Okay, can you see what it looks like? So this is what your yoke will look like. If you are going to be turning your yoke with lining, then you need to add stitching allowance to that part that has selvage. That means you won't have selvage around there if you want to line everything, or you can still even add lining to it even though the selvage is there. Now the neck width we took around here, remember it was 4 inches. Okay, so that 4 inches, that is where our yoke is going to start from. Now take your yoke and place it where I marked that 4 inches and then stitch it down. So you are going to repeat the same thing to the other yoke as well. Okay, so this is what you will have. So I'll repeat the same thing here as well. You mark 4 inches from the middle, from the midpoint of the front neckline. So where you have that 4 inches, place your yoke there. Go ahead and stitch it together. Make sure you've already stitched your bustier. Okay, you must have stitched your bustier together. So once you are done, you are going to pick your lining. Okay, and then you flip the yoke inside. So your yoke is going to be in between the fabric and the lining. After stitching, you should have this. So make sure you iron all your seam. You should iron it open and use your tailor's arm to iron the bustier area so that your bustier does not turn flat. Now around the neck area, when you are stitching the lining and the neck and the fabric together, make sure you use your hemming gum to stitch the neckline so that your lining will glue to the fabric and it will give you a neat finishing. Thank you for watching my video to the very end. Make sure you subscribe, like this video, share this video, and I'll see you guys in my next tutorial. Bye.